Hey, if you're a fantasy author, then you've come to the right place. My name is Autumn Burt, and with Jesper Schmidt, I run the amwritingfantasy.com channel. Between us, we've published more than 20 novels, and our aim is to help you in your writing and marketing endeavors. Today, Jesper is away on business, and I have in his place our guest, Evan Gow. Evan is a writer, but what we are going to focus on today is the creation of the website Story Origin and how it helps authors, especially with mailing lists and engaging readers. So, hi, Evan.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Autumn.
It is good to have you. Evan, I know you said you write a little bit. You are a fantasy writer, but what you have been working on most recently is Story Origin. So, if you could tell us a little bit about that and why you came up with it.
Yeah, so Story Origin is essentially a community and a marketing tool that's helpful for building your email list, doing cross promotions with other authors of your paid books as well, and then also just network and helping to promote each other.
Awesome. And so, what inspired you to create this platform? What need did you see that was out there for this for other authors?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of other platforms out there for marketing and doing very specific things. So you have essentially like 4 or 5 different marketing tools. You might use one for doing giveaways and group giveaways, and then you might use one for doing newsletter swaps and being able to trust those other people that you're swapping with. And then you might use one for there isn't even another platform for running group sales like you can run on Story Origin. The only way authors have done those in the past is by manually building those pages on their WordPress sites and then trying to get other authors to sort of join them. So Story Origin is sort of the only platform for running group sales like that. So I saw this need, and the other thing is being able to create universal links to your book so that when you send out a link to a reader, they can see where the book is in what stores and then set what their favorite store is. And automatically on future times they click on those universal book links, they'll be taken directly to their favorite store. So it's just still a one-click process. So there are all of these different platforms, right? You might want to use like 4 or 5 different tools to do all those things. And with Story Origin, you can do it all on a single platform.
That is one of the things that I first saw it when I first noticed Story Origin before when I was getting to meet you. It was neat how you were packaging all of these different websites and different platforms and even some new things that, like you said, it's some of it hadn't even really existed quite in the form you've been creating it. When did you first launch Story Origins?
So I started working on Story Origin back in July of 2017. That's when I left my job to work full time on Story Origin. And then I had the initial launch for Story Origin in April of 2018. And since then, I've added, a ton of features. And anyone that's was an early subscriber to Story Origin has seen it go from a very small number of features to now being this sort of all-encompassing platform where you can manage everything from one place. So it's been a cool journey, and only over the last 10 months that it's really been going. So it's very cool.
It is. I was a pretty early, noticed it pretty early because I had actually just recently switched mailing list platforms from MailChimp to MailerLite. And then I ran into Story Origins, which I thought was kind of funny. And so I do actually have a profile in there, and I've used it a little bit. And if MailerLite decides to go wonky on me again, I might just move everything over to your platform because I love to see how it is growing, and I love that it is author focused, which is I think one of the neat things. So many other ones like MailerLite has some landing pages templates that are designed for authors, but you can't network there to create a giveaway to find other people who do a newsletter swap. There are a lot of things you're offering, and I think one of the cool. I think it'd be a good discussion to talk about each of those features and why which one did you start with, and then why did you start adding some of the other ones, and how do you see authors using them?
Yeah, so the very first feature that I started with was being able to create a giveaway. And a giveaway, for those of the audience that aren't familiar with it, is typically you might also hear it referred to as a reader magnet. It's typically a short story, 10 to 15,000 words, that you give away for free in exchange when someone signs up to your mailing list. So I started with that feature because I thought that would be the best way to start giving, providing value to authors. And then after that, I added the group giveaways feature where authors can get together in a group. So you, me, and 20 other fantasy authors will all have our books, our reader magnets listed on a single page, and we all drive our traffic there. And so it has network effects with that feature. So that sort of started the word of mouth for Story Origin.
That's fantastic. So you started with the giveaways and with the, as you said, reader magnet, which is really fortunate. Jesper and I just recently did a different video, an earlier video, talking about why you need a mailing list and the use, how to build one, and we mentioned reader magnets. So it's sort of like the core of what began Story Origin. And what did you add after that?
So the next feature that I added after that was the group sales feature. So and the an Amazon link localizer. So when you send an email to someone and you just send them the straight Amazon link, if that's at the .com domain, and they click on that link, but they live in the UK or they live in Australia, they're not going to be in the correct storefront for their country. Their Amazon storefront is .co.uk or .au or whatever country they're from. So the first thing that I built was basically an Amazon link localizer. You put in your Amazon link, and then whenever anyone clicks on your universal link, like Amazon storefront for that country, and that was sort of the enabling feature for me to build the group sales pages where you, me, and 20 other fantasy authors, it's very similar to a group giveaway where we're all promoting our books, but instead of people clicking on those links and those links going to the reader magnet, they go to our Amazon sales page so that we can actually make money. And the way that the reason that I built that feature next was because I didn't see a single other platform out there where you could do that. I saw these authors who were manually building these pages on their own WordPress sites, and I know how much work that can be. And so I was like, there should be a super simple, 2-minute process for creating a group promotion and then finding other authors to join. So that's how I started with that feature.
Great. That is, it definitely is true. I've built a few giveaways on my writer website, and it is, I took a couple, once you got a template going, it was okay, but then someone had to swap out links, and you're responsible for uploading these images. They give you the wrong one.
Right.
And it was, people wanted me to do it again because it got a lot of, it was definitely like one of the biggest website days or weeks, you want to say, for my website. I mean, it was huge. Right. And that was really cool to probably up my ranks on my website a little bit. But the work going into it, you need to set some time aside to code that. And so it is really neat that you have that with Story Origins. Yes. And you can do newsletter swaps, correct? Is that something that I think you could network to do that as well?
Yeah, so that was the feature that I added after the group sales feature. So once I had the sort of the universal links and the group sales, one other thing that I noticed was, okay, there are a lot of Facebook groups out there for authors to say, hey, I've got a newsletter going out in 2 weeks. Does anyone want to mention my book in their newsletter? I'll mention your book in my newsletter. There are a couple of other platforms out there for doing this, but one is run by a scam artist, and the other one, the author has, or not the author, but the developer behind it has just been letting it languish. And from what I've heard from other authors who use that platform, it's essentially unusable now because like you get a bunch of errors when you try and do stuff on there now. So I was like, okay, well, Story Origin can sort of come in here and be that all-encompassing platform for creating and finding cross promotions with other authors in your genre. That's like the vision. So I can start to have a way for authors to find newsletter swaps. I'll post my campaign, what book I want you to mention in your campaign, and then you post your campaign and what book you want mentioned in my campaign, and then we can essentially trade mentions of each other's books. And so that's it's sort of an all-encompassing platform for all of those cross promotions you might do.
And so I want to get into a few other details with it, but do you have any more things that are coming out that you want to share, or your other visions for how else you can think Story Origin is going to help authors in the future? And out of curiosity, are you doing all this coding yourself? This is I do a little tiny bit of coding, and I do build my own websites because I have that background. Computer stuff runs in my family.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. So I look at what you've been doing with Story Origin, especially the coding to do the universal links, and I'm like, wow, that's some skill to make sure it's really going to work right. So I was curious if you're doing this all on your own.
Yeah. I'm completely independent. I've been basically building this platform by myself for the last 18 months and doing all the marketing and handling all of the customer service. So when you use Story Origin, it's me. Every part of it for sure. The good and the bad. Hopefully more good than bad. Um, so yeah. And you know, when I started to work on Story Origin, I basically looked out at the sort of landscape of ways that I could build it, the various tech stacks that I could use. And I'm using a very sort of modern tech stack to build Story Origin that really allowed me develop features faster than anyone on the market. And since it is just me, I have direct feedback from authors who are on the platform, and I'm like always looking at, okay, here's what people are doing, here's what people are saying in Facebook groups about like what they're doing and how they're doing it, and like manually doing stuff. And I'm like, okay, why can't I do this? I should be able to build this. And I think when you have a separation between who's doing the work of doing the development and who is sort of supposed to be creating the product roadmap, it creates this difference in terms of understanding the market and then like actually building it. And since it's just me, I have the various things that I know authors will find valuable. And to get to your other point on what new features I'll be adding, there's definitely more stuff that I plan on building with Story Origin. And the next sort of enabling thing that I want to do is managing. So if you think about the set of marketing sites that you might use something for universal book links, you might use something for giveaways, you might use, well, again, there's nothing else out there for group sales. And then the fourth is sort of advanced reading copies, right? ARCs. So there are a few different ARC management platforms out there. And basically that's probably the next feature that I'll add to Story Origin. So it really will cover every single base. I basically want to make you sort of the master of every element of marketing with Story Origin. Is like, that's what I want you to feel like you're the Zen master of being able to do everything.
I love it because I know you said you haven't published any of your writing, but you are a writer, and I can definitely tell from having watched you grow Story Origin and met with you and talked with you, even just online and Facebook groups like you've mentioned. You are a real person and not a scammer, and you really do have the best interests of authors at heart, which is fantastic. Is there so I want to talk just a little bit. So you started this as a niche. You started with looking for these links and with mailing lists, building up. Why? What niche do you think that needs? Why do authors need to have a platform like this? Not just that you're putting all in one spot, which is definitely fantastic because you're right. This is like 4 or 5 different sites. And if you were paying each of those sites, it gets really expensive, especially when most authors are making if they're making $1,000 a month, they're really happy. Some of them, if they're making $200, it's then you still have a challenge of paying for your editing and your covers. It's especially as a newbie, it's hard to make it lucrative. So what is it that is the integral part? Why did you start this for the authors and the mailing lists?
Yeah. One other thing to mention right now is Story Origin has basically been in an open beta, which is what I'm calling it. Beta doesn't mean that it's crappy software. Beta basically means that I'm not sure what the pricing model is going to be in the future. So it's completely free right now for people to join, while I'm sort of making myself like a presence in the publishing world, just because there's a lot of companies out there who, like you said, there are newbie authors out there and they're not bringing in that much income yet. And There are publishers who are just like trying to prey on people who are sort of new to the writing scene and all of that. So right now, while Origin, I'm trying to sort of establish myself as like, here, I'm a real human. It's completely free to use, test out. If you don't like it, that's not a problem. I think that you will like it though, of course. And then building email lists, like that is a very valuable feature, I think, to authors, which is sort of why I started there. Because right now, if you look at what Amazon is doing, they're pushing more and more towards you having to advertise your book to get any sort of visibility on their platform, which is in turn driving up the cost per click or like the cost to advertise on Amazon. And so it's becoming a greater barrier to new authors, especially who don't have a backlist of 20 books, where, okay, it's okay if I lose money on the first book because, they'll pick up my second, third, fourth book. And so I can sort of eat the cost on that first book. So for new authors, building that email list is a direct line of communication to your readers, right? You aren't going to there's not going to be some change in an algorithm that means, okay, I was yesterday paying 70 cents for you to click and see my book, and now I'm paying $1.50, right? With an email list, you always have that direct line of contact, that direct line of feedback. So it's becoming more important now than ever, especially as these other platforms become more expensive to advertise on.
That is definitely true too with Amazon. Not only is it becoming more expensive, like I know I have a dystopian series, and there are some dystopian keywords that are completely locked up. It costs more to put money into advertising them than the book is worth, so they end up languishing. But
Right.
then, I mean, I started publishing in 2012, and I call that the Wild West days of indie publishing, because you could pretty much throw up anything. It didn't even really need a cover. You could have a color title and some words in a really horrible font, and you could give it away or you could sell it. And it was amazing. But I think the last time I checked Amazon, I mean, I think there might have been 1 million, maybe 2 million books at the time. Now there's over 9 million books on Amazon, and that's just, it's hard to get an exact figure. You used to be able to look it up, but it's getting harder and harder. And so I do think platforms like yours, because I believe authors do get kind of like a profile page, like a book website page, so you can show off all your books. And once you're discovered on a smaller platform by people, doing these group giveaways, you suddenly have someone discovering all your backlists, or even if you have short stories and freebies, you have them discovering so much more about you that can easily get buried on Amazon if you are not really paying for that marketing. And it is getting more and more expensive. And or you can give away a free book, which is great, but if you do consider that as a business model, you're giving away a free book, but that book cost you something, and every time you're giving it away, you're losing 33 cents of royalties, even if it was a 99-cent book. As a business model, that's eventually it's a huge loss leader to continue to give that away for years and years.
Yeah. The way that I think about it, and I think this advice is pretty sort of standard almost nowadays, is that what you want to do is you want to write in a series, right? So you write, let's say it's a trilogy. So you write 3 books in the series, and then you'll write a prequel novella or prequel short story that's maybe 10 to 15,000 words. So it doesn't cost you a lot of time or money to edit, and you give that prequel away for free as a way to introduce the reader into your universe, and sort of they get to test drive you. If you think about it, it's very, very similar to actually like a subscription to MailChimp or to MailerLite or any of these other services, where you typically will get a 1-month free trial, see if you like the service, and if you do, then you'll sign up for the recurring subscription. Well, you can think about your reader magnet as your free trial, and then every book in that series is like a recurring monthly payment almost, right? If that reader is reading 1 book a month or 1 book a week, you're getting sort of that recurring payment. And so you can give away that short story for free because you know that X percentage of those people who get it are going to convert into your paying reader audience.
I think that is my favorite way of anyone ever describing the loss leader, because I know there's a huge debate right now about, is it devaluing books to give one away?
Right.
I definitely like the idea that, it's like a subscription service. That really makes a lot of sense. So we're almost at the 20-minute mark. So I want to, anything else you want to wrap up to say, why Story Origin, I love that it's a beta platform. Like you said, I've not seen glitches. I've seen some major glitches in some of the programs and stuff that I bought or even continue to subscribe to, and you sometimes put up with it, but it's worked fantastic. I think you're doing an amazing job, especially that you're doing it on your own. It's
Yeah,
a lot of work. I build courses and I build websites, and it's a tough business to be an entrepreneur, and it's amazing that
for
it's
sure.
going, and especially that you left a full-time job to be doing this. So I know it can't be free forever. But
Yeah.
anything else you want to say about it to let people know what it does? I think it's an amazing tool for authors, and it's certainly growing in such unique and interesting ways as a one-stop shop platform for us.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily anything else to mention. Like I said, there's definitely things that I'm going to be adding to improve the existing features and add new features. I'm always working on new stuff, and I send out a newsletter whenever I make those feature upgrades or I add those new features. And so I would say, even if you look at Story Origin and you say, oh, well, it doesn't do this thing, like tomorrow it may. So you might want to sign up just so you can keep up with, any developments that are happening, because maybe it didn't work for your use case today, but tomorrow it might. So I think it's still valuable, and it's, free to keep up with it anyway. So
Which is amazing. I look forward
yeah.
to
Yeah.
seeing it grow, and even if you once you move it to a platform where it's paid or a subscription, I think that's, as I say, authors, it's okay to charge money for your books. We all want to do this and make money at it and be able to continue to see a product. If it stays free forever, then how are you going to continue to manage it?
Right.
So
Right.
I think it's fantastic. Thank you for being with us today. And I will have the links below the show on Story Origin, so you can go scoop it up while it's free and give it a test try. And thank you again for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed our conversation.